Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Don't Argue podcast here, your home of all things AFL, I suppose, from a different perspective. It's been a while, so I just want to make a quick apology. Apologies for the lack of consistency, extreme lack of content, and I suppose just overall negligence on my part. So again, I'm sorry to those of you who have been very supportive of me and what I've done. I went through something in saying that though. I'm all good, and I'm hoping to keep this going and make it more consistent week to week stuff, even in the off season for Fremantle. Now, this video here, as you guys have already hopefully seen, is a video here that's going to be based on Fremantle and my thoughts on our season. Right, we had a season, an interesting season, I guess, and in saying that, I just want to sort of just give you guys a peeled back, perhaps a what's the word, in a nutshell, if you will, sort of video, as opposed to something that's long and drawn out. So in saying that, we'll get straight into it. So this is the 2023 review. So obviously I've also got as well with me my trusted little screen share here for you guys to see. So we'll actually just go through it. Actually, I might do this. It might be better for everyone here. All right, so as you can see, the 2023 season is over, well, the regular season. And obviously, we're heading into finals tomorrow with Collingwood hosting Melbourne, which should be a cracking game. But unfortunately, Fremantle are not part of the festivities, finishing off with 40 points, right? Playing 23 games. And unfortunately, finishing 14th place when you in comparison to, I don't like saying this, but West Coast Eagles, who only had 12 points, right? Fremantle's percentage, obviously, as we can see here, ladies and gentlemen, is 96.7. Right, and as we know, unfortunately, 10 wins, 13 losses. Long story short, not really good enough. And if you can see here as well, win, loss, win, loss, win. It was just, I think it summed up our season. Now, granted, games against Port, games against the Lions, very unfortunate there, but it is what it is, as the old adage says. But I just wanted to give you guys just a bit of context there as to where we finished. So we finished 14th, which in my opinion, not great. But in saying that, obviously, Wall reviews, I guess you look at the good and you look at the bad, and then at the end you make some conclusion, some summary, and you sort of give people a bit of hope, I suppose, or you lament and you sort of forecast doom and misery. But we'll see where this goes. But I'm saying that I like to keep myself pretty positive here. I'm a huge Freo member, love this club to the absolute death. But I'm saying that, though, enough of the rebel. So the good, all right, the good this season, we can all agree. Luke Jackson. I thought Luke Jackson for mine was very, very good. He was a huge positive for Fremantle. Obviously, there was the huge talk as well as I slowly scrolled by to him. There was a huge chat about him, and the cost of money and what it may, I suppose, do to the club, may it be a hindrance or positive. And I suppose he actually answered a lot of the naysayers, a lot of the critics. Now, granted, we got to remember Luke Jackson is only 21 years of age, so he's a young lad. He's still learning the craft, right? As you can see here as well, he was above average in disposals, above average in kicks. Handballs was above average, right? But in terms of total clearance, hit-outs and hit-out advantages, obviously a little bit below average there. But in saying that, he's a young lad who is finding his feet, so to speak, and is trying to mold into that Freo frame and gameplay and context. But I just thought for mine, he was actually a real huge good for us. And actually, somebody who I thought, in my opinion anyway, ladies and gentlemen, had needed a bit of praise there. So that was good. That was my thoughts there. Another good actually as well, ironically, there's some wins over some good teams, all right? Some good quality teams as I sort of scroll by the first game there and the second game. An example I can give you guys is very, very, anyway. The Swans, right? I went against the Swans, as you can see here, winning by 17 points. It was our first win in quite some time, I believe. 2011, I think it was. Last time we won over there at the SCG. So that was a good win, all right? It's a positive game. And obviously the week after, right, we had a win against the Cats. Beautiful to see, especially the Cats being, at the time, the current, they still are technically, the current premiers. And then we went and we beat the D's. And I think during this period here, I think we can all agree that we were actually very optimistic. I think is the word. Very optimistic about our chances heading into, the nitty gritty of the season, right? And I just think for mine that was good. It showed some heart, determination, a bit of grit. It showed that we had some, there was a game plan there that was working, right? When we clicked, it was there, right? And I think for mine, it's something we need to sort of look at and take into scope. But yeah, we had some good wins over some good teams that, the D's are top 4, right? We nearly won, right? Games against the Lions, for example, heartbreaking loss though, and obviously Port, likewise. The Tigers, some games we really screwed up, but hey, it is what it is. Next positive, I think, is this one here. Sarong and Brayshaw coming into their own, and I mean this respectfully. They have been sensational this year, particularly Sarong. Obviously, Brayshaw had that standout year the year prior, but I think we can both agree that both these players here have absolutely stood up and have shown that they are the catalyst for anything to do with a Fremantle premiership win, right? I've already touched there on Jackson, but I thought Brayshaw for mine. Look, 29.2% is disposals is elite. His kicks above average. Handballs elite. Tackling is elite. Total clearances above average. This, look, and you could argue and say that this wasn't even Brayshaw's best year, which it wasn't to a degree because he was injured, right? So part of the season he was actually harboring, I believe it was a shoulder injury, so he wasn't quite there. And then for him to produce those numbers overall at the end, considering it just shows you the type of footy player he is, right? So again, big raps there on good old Brayshaw. I thought was very superb. And the next one as well, as we all know, right, as I'm talking about it, is good old Caleb Sarong, right? You can do no wrong with Caleb Sarong. Again, a feisty player. He is. His disposals were elite, 30.7 per game. His kicks were elite. His handballs elite. His marking was average. Tackles above average, and his total clearances was elite. This was arguably his breakout year. Obviously, he made the All-Australian as well. Congrats to Caleb Sarong. Well-deserved. And I suppose in saying that, just him and Brayshaw, I think overall, right? We got to understand it. We got to own it. They were superb and it was good. It was good. Another part as well, I think, in my opinion, was this part here. The team was learning to somewhat work without Nat 5. Obviously, Nat 5 has continued his unfortunate run of injuries. This absolute Freo legend, Freo GOAT, if you will. And it was no different this season. As we know, partway through, he got injured and the rest is history. But I think the team has learned to somehow shoulder a lot of the responsibilities he used to carry. Obviously, last year was a big indicator of that. And I thought this year here was good. I thought he was great. The team here was great in terms of working without him. Not to say that they didn't need him. He's a big bloody hole to fill, isn't that 5? His shoes, I don't even think 95% of the players playing right now could fill him, right? At his prime, in his prime. 98% actually, I reckon. But I just think that the team did somewhat gel well without him. Obviously, he played some games too, but generally speaking, I think the team, you can say comfortably, whether you like it or not, has learned to move on, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But there you go. Another player here, Luke Ryan. Goodness, I've been speaking about midfielders. I've been speaking about ruckman, forwards and the like. But, this trusty defender here, Luke Ryan, has been nothing but just absolute gold. Again, another sensational year here. His disposals, 24 per game, elite kicks, 19.6. His marks were elite. His meters gained were elite, 533 meters per game. He was just everywhere, wasn't he? He was sensational. He was sensational. And I think for mine, he saved our butts a few times. He really did. There were some games there where he really stood up and really showed us, what sort of player he is, right? He's a formidable player, and I'm really, really happy he's in the squad. But again, hats off there to, in my opinion, our number one defender by far. Next one here is Hayden Young. Now, Hayden Young, I thought for mine wasn't too bad. I thought he was actually pretty good this year. Granted, a few ups and downs. I mean, hey, the whole, I suppose all players were, as sort of skim past Willow there. Sorry, Hayden Young, just when I can get to him. I thought for mine, Hayden Young deserved a bit of praise from me because obviously we know what he can do as a defensive player, as a defender. Obviously, defending and then sort of kicking forward, etc. But we transitioned him. Freo transitioned him to the midfield and in the latter part of the season, and I was very surprised at how competent he was. That game, the most recent game against the Cats, where we versed Dangerfield, I thought he played sensationally. Right, above average for kicks, above average for handballs, marking 4.8, tackling 3.9, elite, and his meters gained was 472 per game, which is also elite. There is so much potential here in Hayden Young, much like Brayshaw, much like Sarong. There's just so much good that we're going to be witnessing here. He's 22 years of age as well. So he's, again, just growing. He's getting stronger, bigger, faster, meaner. But I just really appreciated his flexibility as a player, right? From defender to, as we know, midfield as well in patches. I would even make it an argument that he should probably stick in midfield more, but I'm saying obviously we need him just as much as a defender. Right? I'm sure Luke Ryan appreciates him being there by his side. But look, I suppose my top five, I think I've already sort of run it through, give or take. So I think for mine, my favorite player, in terms of stats and all that jazz, I think for mine was probably Luke Jackson. I actually didn't mind Luke Jackson. I thought Luke Jackson was good. Second would be probably a toss-up between Caleb Sarong or Brayshaw, right? So again, you could go either way of those two. Fourth for mine, I think, was Hayden Young, as mentioned before. And I mean, fifth, look, it could go to anyone there. Obviously, the likes of Luke Ryan. I think honorable mentions to Schultz, Freddie. We all know, you guys know I love Michael Frederick. Absolutely love him. Honorable shout outs as well, I suppose. Sorry, not I suppose, but could go out to even Bailey Banfield, right? Who I thought was good. But those are my top five there anyway, right? Jackson, Sarong, Brayshaw, Hayden Young, and Luke Ryan. But that is it there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with all things in terms of reviews, these always are good. And unfortunately, we got to hit the bad. And I think this is where the meat is for me. I'm sorry, because of the season here, right? I want to hit this one. All right, the first bit of bad is the 5-year plan that was introduced in 2021. Now, the reason why I say that is because there's so much pressure and expectation for Fremantle to grab the premiership, if you will, which is deserved. Every club needs pressure. Every club wants to win. But I just feel for mine with these up and downs and all that jazz, it just overall just highlights just how significant it is for Fremantle to actually try and win, considering what we have dished up, especially this year for context, particularly when you look into last year, right? Last year was like a fairy tale dream, an unfortunate ending, but nonetheless an ending where you thought Fremantle can actually do something heading into this year. And so you just wrote off that. You're confident that Fremantle could make the 8. And it was not to be, as we know. It was not meant to be, need I remind you. But this 5-year plan, has Fremantle winning a premiership by 2025, right? It's 2023, 2024, 2025. So the reality is Fremantle Dockers are supposedly supposed to be winning a premiership within the next 2 years. And again, it's just so much pressure. I know how intense. I'm assuming it's really intense. The board meetings and all that stuff with the men and women behind closed doors. And goals and all that stuff there. Sorry for that. I just realized what I left on the screen. So sincere apologies for that. Goodness me. Yeah, look, the 5-year plan is, there's just, I'm sure there's so much intense meetings and I suppose goals and perhaps they may be almost unrealistic at this point, but the point is this plan here has highlighted just, I don't know, it's a 5-year plan. If it doesn't work out, there's going to be a lot of questions, right? A lot of questions, and I don't think there's enough answers really, or if there's any. Now, this year as well, obviously, I think another thing too that was bad was supposedly our key players leaving us, right? From the likes of Akers, right? Griffin, you could say Rory Lobb. I don't know, you might hate that, but Rory Lobb, for example. Some key players in key areas, right? And perhaps even to a degree, not necessarily leading, but for example, not featuring was Will Brody. Perhaps he was a big one. Collier, I thought was a big one too, Trav. But I think overall, a lot of people like to think that those key players leaving was a big move, but I don't know. I mean, you could put it as bad because obviously you can say they played a part, but at the same time as well, I think it just added to the mess that was this season, right? Perhaps, but yeah, some key players walking. Another one as well was too young. So the too young argument, right? And the reason why I have looked at Saints was late. Saints have a young squad. Look at the way they're performing. Giants too, I think, in part. I just think for mine, it's just the excuse. I don't know, like it was bad, but then I think it was an excuse, but then it gives us something to sort of fall on when all else goes to absolute crap, which is, case in point. Yeah, look, I don't know. I really don't know where I sit with this one here. A lot of people say we're so young, that we're learning. But then what was last year then? Again, you can say, for example, Mundy, you can say Griffin, you can say Lobb, you can say whoever you want to say, But I think ultimately, and from my perspective, I thought that the young ones would have learned from that and then took it into their stride heading into this year. And if we were a top 8 team, I don't think anyone would use a too young argument because we're not. It's here now, right? I don't know. Give me your thoughts. The Captaincy Dilemma, ladies and gentlemen. Again, yes, we all know what happened. Alex Pearce was appointed to be captain of the Fremantle Football Club, for better or worse. Obviously, we celebrate it to a degree, but I think some of us were also like, perhaps Brayshaw should have been selected, right? Perhaps Sarong should have been selected. Look, it wasn't great that I think Alex Pearce probably had a season to forget. Now, granted, I'm not going to forget some of the key games he had, but I mean, overall speaking, right? I think things sort of filter down, and if you can see his stats here again, without being too disrespectful, he was below average for disposals, for below average for kicks, average for handballs, elite for tackling, which is great. For spoils, he was below average, and for intercept mark, he was above average with 2.5. Nothing to really write home about, nothing to cheer about. With all due respect, obviously he was a filler, but I'm hoping that this all gets sort of rectified, I think, anyway. And I'll touch on all that stuff once I come to my conclusion. But yeah, I just think there was a lot of expectation here on Alex Pearce, and I think the fact that we performed so poorly probably didn't add, to probably didn't help him, to be fair. Now, granted, a lot of us were asking for better games, and sure, he gave us good games, but I mean, overall, the stats here don't lie. Numbers don't lie. I mean, we all have players we like and all that stuff, and we can defend them till the cows come home, but we all know in sports, numbers don't lie, right? Performances don't lie. That's it. It's there in front of you. And the reason why I call it a dilemma was because I think it was a real talking point throughout the whole season for us, right? I think it was. All right, forward 50. This team here, oh my goodness. Fremantle Dockers, we could not buy a forward 50 to save our life, even for a second hand, right? It was disturbing to see this, whether that be live, which I did a few times actually, or whether it be on telly. The absolute dilemma we faced as a club when it came to trying to kick inside our own 50 was beyond me. It's beyond me how you can a simple kick inward just never got there. A lot of intercepts or just blatant just kicks that just went nowhere, maybe aimlessly, not trying to do anything. But again, it just wasn't great and a big talking point for me. Another point as well, this argument I think that contributed was it the coach or the squad? A lot of people looked at the coach and a lot of people want him gone. Some people saying next year's, he's gone if he can't take us to the 8. Some people say it was a squad. I think it was just a catastrophe all around. I think obviously this probably stemmed before we even came into preseason last year, right? I generally mean that. perhaps with the appointment of captain, perhaps, or maybe even a few other things that have happened beyond that. But I don't know. It was just a catastrophe all around. Wasn't great from the coach, perhaps dropping players, bringing them in. Wasn't good with some players too, being selected, probably not being the best player to be selected. I don't know what it was, but again, the fact that we're still probably arguing this point adds to the discussion, I suppose. And injuries to Tabs and Fife. Now, Tabner, we all know, sort of played early and then he was okay. And then he got injured. And Fife as well. I don't want to string too long here, but I think those two players, they were somewhat pivotal. Tabs as well. You got young Jai Amos as well, and I can't believe I even missed him there, so apologies for that. But Jai Amos as well, just quickly, shout out to Jai Amos. We'll touch on as well in the conclusion there. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's key injuries there. Yeah, weren't really good. Last but not least as well, ladies and gentlemen, I think for mine was we lacked real polish, I think. When the going got tough, we went. We literally went. We went the other way. We fell. We cracked. It just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't on at all, right? And it left us wanting more. And unfortunately, Fremantle just couldn't give more, right? As we see here, Jai Amos, who's someone I'm going to talk about when we conclude this. But yeah, Fremantle lacked polish. They lacked any urgency, dedication. It wasn't the team of last year, right? The defense was atrocious. Something we worked on. It might come down to attitude, whether that be the formation or whatever it is. But just it wasn't great. We lacked polish. All right, guys, and I suppose the last part as well, the conclusion, right? The conclusion of this, right? So how do I sort of bring all of this into one sort of summary? Look, to conclude Fremantle's season, I'll say it was a lot of promise, not much delivery. Particularly looking into last year as well. However, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? I touched on him, few players there. I'm sure Longmire will probably reflect on the season here, as he said a few times he would, and probably thought, probably could have done this or done that. I think for mine, this season here, I think is more of a reflection season for the players, for the team. It's a season where they can go back. They must go back, actually. They must go back and actually ask some big questions, where they want to be. What do they want to do? What's the go in all of this, right? I really think, the conclusion is the future is bright to a degree, though, right? But again, the questions need to be asked. Who are Fremantle? What is that Fremantle? What's that brand of footy that Longmire is talking about? Is it losing games? Is it losing close games? Is it only really flogging the Eagles? Like, what's that brand? Because again, I'm trying to understand what he's talking about, right? So those are the questions I'm throwing his way. But I mean, overall, Jai Amos was a star, in my opinion. He was sensational. He was a beauty to watch. I think he really is the future of the club. I genuinely mean it. And in terms of captaincy as well, ladies and gentlemen, I think Andy Brayshaw should be the captain. Why? Because he was selected first in 2018. Now, granted, Sarong, obviously he has all those qualities and then some, but I think Brayshaw does too. And I expect Brayshaw to bounce back. I think Brayshaw is going to have a real good year next year. But yeah, I think in captaincy, give it to Brayshaw. He's deserved it. He's the captain. Should be the captain, in my opinion, leading us forward into next year and beyond. Look, if this is going to sound crazy, but I think Fremantle are really going to bounce back from this year, as I think took all of us by surprise, not in a good way. It really did suck. We thankfully, we ended on a high with a win over the Hawks, but unfortunately, obviously, as we know, we start off with a loss, and the rest is history there. But that's just the way it goes sometimes in footy, as we know. However, in saying that, I think the honest conclusion is Fremantle will bounce back from this. This is going to be a beautiful learning experience, but overall, I expect Fremantle to be up for it again, and I think they'll definitely take this into consideration. Right? If this is going to really sound even crazier, right? Considering the finals hasn't even commenced yet tomorrow night, but I'm backing Fremantle to be top 4 tomorrow next year. I really am. It's crazy. I know. I get it, but I really am. So that's what I'm finishing off with. This year was a lot of promise, no delivery, but I think it's going to be a beautiful time for reflection. a lot of self-reflection, a lot of team chemistry to work on. Longmuir is going to be in the lab. They're all going to be in the lab. They're sore from this. I'm pretty sure of it. But you could see the glimpses there. There were glimpses there of a team that could, that can, and will. I'm backing this team here, and my plan is to actually watch Fremantle play in about 3 to 4 states next year. Right? That's 3 to 4 different states next year, including South Australia. Obviously, South Australia always counts as one state, but you get what I mean. That's the plan. Anyway, I'm done rambling. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry for the logo and stuff. Again, I'm getting back into it slowly, but I hope you guys enjoy this review. Anyway, take it easy. See you guys next time. And just remember, don't argue. Go the Dockers.